So I'm currently sitting in my car in the middle of a cyclone that's ironically ripping apart the Gold Coast here in Queensland, whilst reviewing a film that is set purely on the Gold Coast, whilst I'm chewing on a chewy that really should be spit out or spat out, whatever. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about spit. G'day, it's Adam here again with another quick instant movie review for you. So we're having a chat about Spit. This is the 2025 sequel to the 2003 comedy crime caper called Gettin Squared, which was a film that was written, or both of them have been written, by Chris Neist and directed by Jonathan Tiplinski. And they are once again both starring David Wenham. What's this about? 20 years after being on the run overseas, small-time criminal Johnny Francis Spitieri, aka Spit, played by David Wenham, slides back into Australia under a false passport, only to find himself whipped up and thrown into an immigration detention centre. I mean, some people could find that bad, but Spitieri finds a good idea in this, in that he becomes resourceful and starts to teach some of his new friends at the detention centre, including Jahid, played by Arlo Green, the New Zealand actor, and teaches them the ways of mateship and ways in which they can become an Australian citizen and get Australian citizenship. All quite fun. But adding to this, while all this is going on, word that Spit is back in Australia comes floating around. And wouldn't you know it, some of his old enemies included David Field's bent detective and Gary Sweet's ex-con chica are looking to get a hold of him and sort him out, because he is the one link to an ongoing investigation against both of them. So Spit has to struggle to stay alive and stay one step ahead of all the nastiness. Now, back in 2003, when Gettin Squared was released, it sort of got caught in the whitewash of some massive films that came out that year. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Matrix Reloaded, Finding Nemo, that had the Pirates of the Caribbean film. So lots and lots of films were really taking away from this little Australian gem, and it really did find its resurgence, like a lot of films do, on DVD and VHS, something unfortunately that's kind of lost a little bit in the mix these days. I guess streaming is the next best thing. So anyway, the film kind of gained a bit of a cult following, and for many years, little memes came out of David Wenham's court scene, which has become a bit infamous in a lot of respects now, and really does show the comic chops that David Wenham has, and the endearing nature of his character of Spit. So fast forward 20 years, David Wenham was sort of toying up about, maybe coming back. And it wasn't until director Robert Connolly, who was the director behind such things as The Dry and The Dry 2 and so on and so forth, really encouraged Wenham to get out there and to make a sequel. So he got in hold of Chris Neist, who wrote the first film, and said, look, I think we really want to do it. Neist came back to him with a whole heap of ideas and a fully fledged script. And the gang got back together. And the beautiful thing about this film is it really does showcase, once again, the great comic chaps of David Wenham. I mean, he's been in so many iconic Australian films over the years that it's always nice to see him take a lead. He's kind of always been sort of like a supporting character in a lot of things. He was in Elvis, he's been in Australia, he's been in tons of stuff. But really, this is his showcase. And in Gettin Squared, it was really Sam Worthington who had a breakout from that film, and David Wenham was a side character. So really good to see him taking the lead in this film, and his character getting the full stage in this time round. It's all shot on the Gold Coast, and the director has done a great job featuring a lot of the GC and showing some of those sort of slight underbelly parts, I suppose. Southport does get a lot of feature, including the squash court that I drive past a lot and think, why is that still standing? Well, now I know why, because of this film. So yeah, it's nice to see that, and quite ironic at the moment that the Gold Coast is being whipped up by a cyclone. That some of those parts in Southport might actually be blown down now. Who knows? But anyway, hopefully not. Gary Sweet is in it briefly. He's great. Once again, I love seeing Gary Sweet on film, and David Fields always is a menacing presence whenever he has a bit of a nasty character to play. I just love to see him up on the big screen. This does try and reenact a few things from the previous film. There is the court scene is once again featured in this. And it sort of goes on a bit. It has small comic moments, and it does reach some good little heights, but not to the same impact as the original film. It kind of feels like it's trying to push the boat out a little bit too hard. I actually saw this film in an advanced screening with David Wenham and the director, both talking about the film, and Wenham is also a producer on this one as well. And it's interesting when they were talking about it, about getting the character back into the swing of things, how they went and did some costume tests and some character tests over in the UK with the makeup team as well. So they had a little bit of fun over there, and yeah, like you can see that Wenham just fits into this role so beautifully, and it's so different to him. That really is a talent that the man has. The one thing I would say about this, though, is the film doesn't really have a cohesive structure, like a structure that I believe is really one thing leads into the other thing leads into the other thing. It sort of feels kind of forced all around this character to try and create some sort of a narrative thread. So it almost feels a bit more like a situation comedy, something that maybe could have been a series, that you had an episode every week where something different happens to to Spit, and that would be, I think, quite funny all on its own. And then to bring it out into a feature film, it kind of just feels like it's sort of all packed together a little bit, and maybe certain threads have kind of been really stretched to get some comic chaps out of it. But that doesn't take away from some great performances, some really nice moments. Like the stuff in the detention center is quite funny, but it's also quite touching in certain respects. There's a thread there with his deaf sister, and that's a sort of a thread that I didn't really get on board with. And then there was a thing with a kid and a foster, and there was a few things I'm like, oh really? Well, why are we here? What are we doing with that? So yeah, some of it felt a bit forced, I think, is what I'm trying to say. But I don't like to discourage from the really good parts, which is David Wenham is really great and as much as there is so many F-bombs dropped in this film, it is actually quite inoffensive in a really strange way. It's almost like a family film, but if it wasn't for the F-bombs, it almost could be, because it's quite inoffensive. It just has a really good heart, this film. And I think that's the lovely thing about it, is it's got a good heart. The people who, everyone who worked on the original film really came back into this, and they really wanted to make it something special. And you can see that Wenham really wants to as well, and wants to have further adventures with this character. And again, I feel like those further adventures, as much as I love the fact that this is a cinematic release, I feel like those extra adventures could almost be in a series, that would be on pay or whatever. Like, that's kind of, I feel like, where this character could land, and maybe another adventure after those, if that series really gets some traction, maybe it can come back to the big screen. That's kind of how I feel about it. Some great supporting characters. Kelly Smythe in this. With, as I mentioned, David Field. You've got Gary Sweet. So really good array of character actors in this one as well. So if you get a chance, I would love to say, please support this Australian film, because David Wenham is great. There's some really funny moments. And if you've seen Getting Squared, you definitely want to see this one as a sequel. It definitely doesn't diminish the original film. It just kind of adds a little bit more to it. So Spit, I'd probably go 6.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I just feel like the structure wasn't all there. It wasn't as tight as the original film, and probably with another revision of a script or another revision of certain things that I think it probably could have been a tighter narrative. But I really did enjoy David Wenham's performance. That is it from me. What is your favourite Australian caper comedy? Do you have one? I mean, Getting Squared is one of them. I really enjoyed that. The Square is a really interesting one. Maybe you like your more in-depth crime films like Animal Kingdom, for instance, which I really, really loved. Comment below, let me know. Maybe just tell me which one you love the most. I'd love to find out too. And I will catch you all next time here in my car. Can I have that chewing gum back now that I've finished my review? Yes, I can. Okay, bye-bye.